Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Epic Vision Zone. My name is Jane Applegath, a former award-winning stockbroker, television producer, yoga instructor, and serial entrepreneur, now founder of the Epic Vision Zone. I'm here to power up your vision, your voice, and your visibility because what you say and how you say it is the key to impacting more people, making more money, and living a more abundant and joyful life. Here at the Epic Vision Zone, we bring you some of the world's most influential and fascinating people to inspire you to hit the go button on your epic life. A big thank you to everyone for being here. Rumi said, "Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion." Today, our guest is Brent Michael Phillips, a former world-class software engineer from MIT. Brent went from helping to create the modern internet during his time in grad school and part-time MIT technology startup to becoming a revolutionary healer. After a staggering physical challenge, years of chronic pain that led to a permanent disability, and an experimental surgery that paralyzed Brent's right arm, he went to a healer and experienced his first miracle when his arm instantly and permanently healed. After studying with world-class master healers, gurus, and spiritual teachers, Brent reversed engineered the scientific laws and principles underlying the miraculous instant healing and much, much more to create his groundbreaking awakening dynamic system that uses advanced consciousness technologies for subconscious clearing, instant healing, manifestation, and the ascension of consciousness from awakening to enlightenment. An award-winning author, an Amazon #1 best-selling co-author, and the inventor of a patent-pending formula for miracles technology, Brent's greatest passions are teaching healing and helping others to experience their own genuine spiritual awakening. Welcome, Brent. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm excited to be here. This is great.
Well, we're excited to have you, and I can't wait to delve in. So my first question is, how is it that an MIT-trained software engineer became a healer and decoded the formula for miracles?
That's a great question. And I'm the first to admit to everybody watching and listening, I never thought I'd be doing anything like this. Oh my gosh. Wasn't even on my radar. If you had told me when I was a little boy that this would be my life's work, I would have laughed. Heck no. Because I was always in love with computers. I grew up, I was kind of your stereotypical nerd. I loved video games, Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Dungeons and Dragons, right? So when I got to college at MIT, I discovered the internet, which of course sounds funny today to the younger listeners, but I had never heard of it before. And I thought, wow, this worldwide computer network, this is going to change everything. And it has. So to make a long story very short, I made computer networking the focus of my studies. I graduated from MIT, continued on there at graduate school. When I was in graduate school, that's when it got really interesting because that's when the World Wide Web started to break out. And I was very fortunate to be part of the first World Wide Web consortium. And we did a lot of really amazing things. One of the things we did when I was in grad school, my group, we sent the first ever live audio video stream over the internet through the web. And that was in, I think, April of 1994. And so it really, the sky was the limit. And when it came time to figure out what I wanted to do next, it was a pretty easy decision. I figured, well, I'm one of the world's leading experts on this internet thing. I'm going to leave MIT, move to California, recruit my best friend, and start an internet company, right? And I figured we'll work really hard for a couple of years, we'll sell it for millions of dollars, and then spend our lives hot tubbing with supermodels on some tropical island, right?
Sounds good.
It was a great plan for a young man, right? But it got off to a good start. The very first website we ever did, my first website in my life, was the website for the Sony PlayStation, the launch in 1995. So that was a big deal. After a year with our company, we had a whole laundry list of Fortune 500 clients. I had 15 people working for me. We did websites for Disneyland, for Sony, for Nissan Motors, for all these big companies. And we even started a second company to make a revolutionary online game, which was a huge passion for me because I had figured out how to take my graduate school research and turn it into this brand new form of entertainment, something no one had ever done before. And it's funny, it's taken the world 25 years to catch up. What I created in the 90s was really the first metaverse. Though admittedly, it was technologically a little primitive, but it was a single virtual online world, persistent state, three-dimensional. First one ever. But because I was 25 years ahead of my time, the game struggled, and I worked harder and harder, and that was kind of my downfall. Because I wanted to be successful more than anything. I was willing to work as much as it took, give up my weekends, my vacations, my holidays, if I could be successful. Instead, I destroyed my health. And after a couple years of living at my office, 80-hour work weeks, my health started to break down. And I started to have pretty severe pain. And it wasn't just a little tingle. I mean, it was pain so severe, some days I had to pull over my car driving home for 10 minutes because it was too painful just to hold the steering wheel. And the pain got so bad, I had to move in with my parents because some days I hurt so much I needed help just eating food and getting dressed. But at first I didn't panic because I figured, hey, you got something wrong with your body, you go to the doctor, they'll give you something, you'll be fine, right? That's what I used to believe. And so again, long story short, I spent 3 years in conventional treatment. I was going for 3-hour sessions, 3 days a week to the Curl and Job facility in West Los Angeles. And it was so frustrating because I didn't get better. I got worse.
Oh.
I got worse and worse. My pain got worse and worse. And my partner hung in there for a while. And after 3 years of physical therapy, I finally got an appointment with the head doctor at Curl and Job. And this was a big deal, right? This is someone that works with Olympians, professional athletes, right? He talked about doing surgery on all these big sports stars. And I thought, wow, this guy can help me, right? So I was so excited. I'm like marking the days off on my calendar. And I go in to see him. And he's got all my files. And he just looks at them and goes, well, I'm sorry, son, but I got to tell you, nothing our ionic doctor can do. You're always going to be in pain and you'll never be able to go back to work.
Oh, no.
I was just like, what? I thought you would have a solution, right?
Yeah.
And as I left, his secretary said, oh, Mr. Phillips, couple things. One, the doctor wants you to know he's approving you for permanent lifetime disability because he thinks there's no chance you'll ever recover. And please don't come back. We've canceled all your upcoming therapy because we can't be wasting our limited resources on impossible cases.
Wow.
And that was that. And he literally sent me home to die when I was 27 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty
That's
horrifying, right?
horrible.
And so at first I was like, okay, this sucks. I told my best friend and business partner. And I thought he'd be all, hey, Brent, we'll get through this together. I got your back, right? No, he just said, sorry, man. If you can't work, you're of no use to the company. So I got fired from the company I had founded, that I had built up with my blood, sweat, and tears, right?
Yeah.
And here's what it gets even worse. This is what I call the cherry on the hot tub sundae. One, I found out he had been secretly dating the woman I was in love with.
Oh my
I'm like, my
gosh.
lifelong best friend and business partner, right? And it gets even worse. He had inherited over $10 million from his grandfather that same year. So he didn't need the money at all. And so long story
Wow.
short, I was in my first dark night of the soul. Everything was falling apart. I had lost this company that he then turned around and sold behind my back for several $1 million. So that was devastating. I had lost my health. I was in chronic pain, living with my parents, broke, looking at a lifetime of trying to survive on disability with no chance of recovery. And oh yeah, I also had a broken heart and I had lost my lifelong best friend.
I feel
So
terrible.
it was a really dark time. I mean, I started drinking heavily, using drugs. I mean, I was suicidal. It was a really dangerous time. But I was very
Oh my
lucky
Lord.
that I had a friend of mine pull me out of it. He turned me on to positive thinking and alternative medicine. And he said, "Hey, Brent, just because the doctors can't help you doesn't mean you can't get better. It's just we got to think outside the box, right?" So that actually gave me some hope. And so again, long story short, I spent 5 years living with my parents, spending all the little bit of disability pension I got, and running up a big credit card debt doing all this alternative treatment and positive thinking, right? So I go
Hmm.
to positive thinking weekends, and I had acupuncture and herbs, and I did cleanses, osteopaths, naturopaths, I mean, Reiki healing. I could go on and on, right? I was doing all these things, but it was the same thing. I didn't get better. I got worse, and nobody could help me. And I was so frustrated. I reached the end of the line when I had applied for an experimental surgery because I found a doctor. He had this experimental surgery. He was doing a study. He thought it could help me. So I signed up. And long story short, of course, if the surgery had cured me of all my pain, I wouldn't be here today, right? It was just the opposite. When I woke up from the surgery, my right arm was paralyzed. I couldn't use my
Oh
right arm at all.
my gosh.
And I'm like, when is this going to stop, right? It just kept getting worse and worse. So it was about 4 or 5 months later, I met this crazy healer lady named Terry. And I had done some energy work before. I had done some Reiki healing and pranic healing and a few things. And she told me, "Oh, Brent, I think I can help you. You just got a lot of subconscious blocks. We'll work them out. You'll be fine." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever," right? So I
Yeah.
ignored her. And it was actually my Aunt Lauren that was kept calling me and nagging me. She's like, "Brent, go see Terry. Go see Terry." I'm like, "It's not going to work. I can't afford it," right? All these excuses. Eventually, I'm like, "Okay, Lauren, if you promise to stop calling me, I'll go see Terry." She's like, "Great." So I had an appointment. I went to see her. She talked about the power of the subconscious mind and how I probably just was full of subconscious blocks. And she had this process of checking and clearing them. And she asked me a lot of questions about my childhood and my parents and my relationship with God and my best friend and my broken heart and all the things I'd been through. And she's kind of doing this block clearing thing. And I'm like, "Okay, this is all well and good, but hey, lady, I'm not here to talk about my feelings, right? I'm here
Right.
because I'm in a lot of pain and I can't move my arm, right? That's why I'm here." And I didn't see the connection. So we're doing all this stuff for about a little over an hour. And she goes, "Okay, let's heal your arm." And I'm like, "Yeah, right, whatever, right?" And so she kind of went into a trance for a minute and her eyes kind of rolled back into her head and she's doing her thing. And I'm just like looking out the window, right? Going, "What do I want to get on the way home for lunch?" Right. And it was the craziest thing. I heard this loud pop inside my elbow, like it cracked and popped, like kaboom, like a really loud joint crack, right? And I remember I was like, "Whoa, my elbow just popped." And Terry opened her eyes and she was like, "Okay, try your arm." And I was like, "Holy crap," right? What I actually said is a little more R-rated, but I was like, holy guacamole, Batman, right? I could move
Right.
my arm again. And it was astonishing. I did not expect that. And so that was the moment that this skeptical, nerdy MIT engineer decided to become a healer and a spiritual teacher. And that's what I've been doing ever since, that I want to get this work out to the world. There's too many people suffering with too many problems that are solvable. And,
Wow.
I just wish I had found it sooner.
But maybe you needed to go through all of that
Yeah,
to get to
absolutely.
where, yeah.
Yeah.
But
And it's
still,
kind of
I
funny
have,
that, yeah,
yeah.
when I started doing it, I thought I was ready to go on Oprah day one, right? And I look back and I go, "You know what? It's really good I didn't. I wasn't ready, right?
Right,
I thought
right,
I was, but I wasn't." And I think you're correct in that. I thought I was ready, but I had to be at a certain place, right? I had to
right.
have this huge volume of pain and desperation to really get to the point where I was willing to surrender and let go.
Yes.
It took a lot.
But funny enough, you weren't really tuned in because you said you were looking out the window and you were wondering what was
Right.
for lunch
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
were
I
just like,
wasn't tuned in. I was just going
yeah,
through the motions, right? Because I'm
right,
like, how
right.
could this lady use the power of her mind to fix my arm? Right? It made no sense to me, right?
Yeah.
And then I
Oh,
had my own experience of it, and I'm like, "Oh shoot! Oh my gosh! There's something real here, right?"
yeah. Oh my, that's amazing. I'm so glad that your aunt, was it that
Yep.
bugged you to go see? You
She
must
kept
have
bugging me. Yeah,
given her a big hug. I don't
I
know.
did. Yeah. In fact, she even loaned me the money to pay for the session.
Wow. I
Yeah.
am so, because your story, I just felt like giving you a big hug. I felt so bad for you. Oh my Lord.
It was hard.
I I have to
It was
give you
hard.
credit for hanging in there. Oh my gosh. I mean, that is amazing. But see, this is now where we are today, and I just can't wait to delve in because this is probably your path. I mean, this is your
Yeah,
path. This
probably.
is
You know,
all that loss with the well, not so much of a good friend, really, but and the
yes. Well, what I
MIT,
thought
but
was a good friend, right?
yeah, exactly. Good gosh. Anyway, so that is an amazing story. Oh, and I could see where anybody who had an experience like that would become an instant believer. I mean, I'm a huge believer in energy. I love Joe Dispenza's work, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Yeah, he's one of my
And
favorites for sure.
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just delve in and get into the meat of this now because I am
Sure.
so fascinated, Brent. So, what exactly is the formula for miracles?
Well, it's a set of technologies for
Mhm.
consciousness. And that's something that I think it's important to be clear about. Consciousness is a technology. It's just similar to electricity, that if we go back in time 500 years, humans in the past weren't stupid. They saw thunderstorms, right? They saw lightning strikes and they felt static electricity, but they didn't really understand electricity or how it worked, and they couldn't make it work for them. Then we figured it out, mostly in the 18th, 19th century. People like Tesla and Edison and Maxwell, we figured out the technology of electricity. We figured out how it works. We learned how to generate power and distribute power. And now electricity runs much of our lives. It puts the lights on, right? It heats our homes. It drives our cars. It runs our electronics, does all these amazing things. So consciousness is like that. There is a technology to it. But the place where we're at as a society is kind of like electricity maybe 500 years ago, that we recognize there is consciousness and we see the effects of it. We hear about stories of people that heal instantly from diseases, right? Have a spontaneous remission, have a life a near death experience, see the future, have a prophetic dream. We have these things we see happening, but we don't really understand exactly how it's working or how to put it to work for us. The formula for miracles is my effort to get into that gap, to show people, hey, there is a technology to this. That just like Maxwell laid out the laws of electromagnetism for us, I want to help lay out the laws of metaphysics. This is how the mind works. This is how consciousness works. The good news is when you do that, it's a formula that anybody can use to apply and see results. Because here's what happened to me. When I started learning this, I was really excited, of course, after experiencing a miracle, right? First thing I want to do is be truthful with everybody. I want to be clear. It's not like my whole life was fixed in an hour, right? That didn't happen. What did happen was my frozen elbow, my paralyzed arm, instantly healed and never gave me a problem again. So it was a step forward, but it wasn't like my life was perfect, right? I still had chronic pain. I was still in debt. I was still on disability, couldn't take care of myself, etc., right? But with a lot more work, I was able to move forward. And here's what happened to me. When I started studying this, first with Terry and then with other incredible teachers, I thought it was going to be easy. I was wrong, right? Because I figured, well, heck, I got a perfect 5.0 GPA in the most competitive major at the most difficult university on the planet. How hard can this be? Well, the answer was I was terrible. I was a disaster. Short version, I was so stuck in my mind. Too many years of science and engineering, right? Too much the skeptic, the rational thinker. I was totally stuck in my head. So I couldn't do it at all. And I got really frustrated. But what I realized was I had a path open to me that most people didn't. I was coming to this with world class science engineering skills and education. So here was my thing. I'm like, okay, I don't have this talent that maybe Terry or other people had, but I do have this ability to reverse engineer. And that's what I did. So I started reverse engineering the masters, starting with Terry. And I went to all these incredible teachers, shamans, mystics, intuitives, gurus, right? And I learned what they had to teach. And I did my best to figure out what was actually going on behind the scenes, right? What are they
Mhm.
really doing here? And that led me to create this formula for miracles. It's I took all this cool stuff, right? And I ran it through what I call my new age fluff filter. And I filtered out all the feel good, all the nonsense, all the things that weren't really important. And what's left is what really works. And that's really where the formula for miracles comes from. That we recognize there is a technology to consciousness, to prayer, to energy healing, to mind power. Like any technology, there's a lot of pieces you have to get right. So, for example, if you want to build an airplane, there's a lot of things you have to get right. The geometry of the wings and the body, lift and drag, aerodynamics, fuel, a motor, all these things, right? And if you don't have them all right, your airplane either won't fly or it may fly but crash. Both are bad, right?
Right.
So that's what I found with energy healing and prayer and law of attraction, was there's a lot of people putting an ad hoc process on it. Oh, come to me, teach you this magic formula, and then you use it and you hope it works. I found that when I did that, all I got was a lot of disappointment, a lot of failure, a lot of frustration.
Mhm.
So I'm not just going to go, oh, try this and hope it works. I'm going to show you step by step how it works and identify all the specific pieces we need to have in place. And if you do that, you will get consistent results, right?
Right.
When Boeing rolls a new airplane off their assembly line, they're not that worried about whether it'll fly or not. They know it'll fly, right? They've done the
Mhm.
work. They've done the modeling. They've done prototypes, right? They have great confidence it's going to fly. And that's how I try to teach this, in a way that we have good confidence it'll work, because this is technology. And I'll give one piece right now. It's a simple one. One of the things I learned, which was so interesting, studying what we call paranormal phenomena, right? Instant healing, miracles, talking to the dead, seeing the future, remote viewing, things like that, right? That there was a strong correlation between paranormal experience and the theta brain state.
Mm.
And I thought that was so interesting. So that seems to be one of the keys. And we see this if we look at history. A good example, it would be if we talk about healers, Edgar Casey. That Edgar Casey was called the sleeping prophet. Why is
Mm.
that? When he would do his work, he would go into what he called a trance state where he was half awake and half asleep. What he's describing is a theta brainwave, right? The
Mhm.
theta wave is the brainwave we're in when we're asleep and dreaming. We need to learn how to turn on that same brainwave when we're awake. Now, this alone is not the key to the whole universe, right? Just because you
Right.
get into a theta brainwave doesn't mean you're going to be a billionaire or get married tomorrow, right? But this is one of the foundations, right? This is one of the boxes we need to check. And the way it works is pretty simple. If you want to see change in your life, you better be working with your subconscious. And the theta brain state is a magical key that opens the subconscious. That for most of
Mm.
us running around all day, the subconscious is closed off, right? It's behind a door with a lock on it. If you get into the theta state, it opens the door. That you all know I'm a software engineer by background, right? So I see everything as code. That
Huh.
basically, by getting to a theta state, you access the source code for your life. And that's so powerful because when you have access to the source code, you can reprogram it and make it do almost anything. And that's something when I worked with computers, I was very proud of. I used to say, I can make a computer do almost anything. It's just a matter of how long it takes and how much it costs, right?
Right.
And what I found is our lives are the same. We are like a computer. Your body is the hardware, your subconscious mind is the software.
Mm.
And when you have access to that code, you can literally rewrite your own code. You can change the way your life works. And that's what I'm here for, is to show people this is something we can all do. And it's not hard. And in case some people are wondering, oh, Brent, you sound so smart, you know all about computers. No, changing human energy is much easier than electronic computers, because
Mm,
computers are really finicky and really detail oriented, right? If you have one semicolon in the wrong place, the whole thing crashes,
yeah.
right? Working with consciousness is much easier. It's a much simpler thing, right? It's the difference between using a toaster or like programming the space shuttle,
Oh,
right? Yeah, programming the space shuttle is hard, right? I could have done it in the past, but it's really hard. It takes years of training, right?
yeah.
But anyone can learn to use a toaster. So for everybody watching and listening, don't worry. If you can use your toaster, you have plenty of capacity to be a master healer. That's really all it takes. It's actually very easy once you know what you're doing.
Fascinating. It's Brent, with your knowledge, with the computers and your experience now with, like you said, there's a lot of individuals who practice this healing, but they have a lot of, I say, static on the outside. You know, they have the chanting or whatever, but it's almost like this, you were meant to be here at this time because we need the kind of work that you are doing, but you have got that technology background, and now you've got the marriage with the other. It's like the perfect timing. I mean,
It
you
is
know, for
exciting because
it
it's not
is,
a
it's very
coincidence,
exciting.
right? It's
Yeah,
not a coincidence that I
I
spent
don't
the
think
first
so.
30 years or so of my life focused on learning software.
Right,
That
right,
someone needs to be here doing this job, right? Just
right.
like
And
if we look at the great scientists, Edison and Tesla and Newton, they were all in exactly the right place with the right gift to move the world forward. Even
exactly.
if we look at the world of physics, and I've always loved physics, it's always been a hobby of mine. I love physics. The world of physics is so different than it was 30, 40 years ago. Because it used to be that they put, all the new thought thinkers in a box with the hippies and the philosophers.
Yep.
It's like real science over here, everyone else get out. Now it's totally different. All of the high level physicists working on the theory of everything, they are all spiritual. Why? They see it in the universe.
Yeah.
That you look at how the universe works, and it tells us you can literally see the face of God in the laws of the universe.
Mm.
That we have to get past this idea that science stays here and spirit is over here. No, we got to open the door, let them work together, because that's
Yeah.
how we're going to move forward. Because the fact is, the spiritual work has a lot of deficiencies that can be remedied with a scientific approach. And the
Right.
scientific world has a lot of deficiencies that can be remedied with a spiritual approach. So
Absolutely. I agree.
there's so much we can do here. It's really amazing.
It is, and it's exciting. So get it moving on, because we've seen, a lot of us have seen and heard of the law of attraction. And so is this something like the law of attraction in the way that it works?
It is, it's sort of. What I would say is this is the rest of the law of attraction they didn't tell you about.
Okay.
That a lot of people don't realize this. Some may have heard this, that when the original Think and Grow Rich book was created, it was neutered. It was what we call in software crippleware. That there was political pressure not to release the full teachings, and so a lot of it got taken out. And so I would say the law of attraction is necessary but not sufficient. What does that mean? That's an engineering terminology. It means that the things they teach you in law of attraction school are important and useful, but on their own will probably not create the result you want. So, as an example, if I took an airplane wing back in time 1,000 years and handed it to people in the Middle Ages, that would not necessarily allow them to build an airplane. Why? Wing design is a part of it, but an airplane is more complicated than just a wing design, right? You need a motor, you need fuel, you need a way to steer it, you need controls, you need a seat, you need all these things, right? So what it comes down to is the law of attraction isn't so much wrong as it's incomplete. There's a lot more to teach about it. And I'll give a couple pieces right now. So I know a lot of the listeners, including me, we've done the law of attraction thing, and for the most part, haven't gotten great results, right? Maybe you watched The Secret or went to a mastermind and they had you jump around on the stage. There's nothing wrong with that. The trouble is it's just insufficient, right? It's not enough. And a couple pieces would be one, that if you're working against your own subconscious, you're dead in the water. So that's one of the reasons why your typical law of attraction doesn't always work. Why? If you've got subconscious blocks, saying your mantras till you're blue in the face is not going to change anything, right? It's just you're pushing on something that's too big to move. And you need something that can then get rid of the subconscious blocks, right? That's part of the formula for miracles. And that's something I can teach people very quickly in my webinars. I can teach you in about 15 minutes how to check yourself for subconscious blocks. It's not that hard. And then once you've identified them, you can then learn a process to clear it. And that makes a big difference, right? So the way I would describe it is like this. I see technology in consciousness as being in three primary generations. So the first generation of technology is kind of your traditional positive thinking law of attraction, right? The Secret and Think and Grow Rich and Think Yourself Rich, that kind of stuff. And it's all about training the conscious mind to focus on what you want. So that's great. And it's useful, but it's just not enough, right? It's not that it's wrong, it's just it's old technology. And so we can do better. And in the last 20, 30 years, we've seen a lot of breakthroughs into what I would call the second generation of consciousness. That would be processes, techniques that can directly work with the subconscious. So if we look at things like Psych K, healing codes, emotion codes, there's body codes, there's a whole dozens, hundreds of modalities, some kinds of hypnotism, NLP, that kind of work on the premise, we want to get the right beliefs and thoughts into your subconscious. And that's a huge step forward, right? That if we look at your typical law of attraction first gen program, success rate is about 1%. So if you get 1,000 people jumping around like monkeys on the stage at the hotel, shouting out that they're going to be millionaires, on average, you'll have 5 to 10 of those 1,000 that will see some movement in their life, right? So it's not that it can't get results, it's just the results are rare. So we're looking at about 1%. When we start to get into the second gen and shift the subconscious, then our success rate rises significantly. Then we're looking at 10, 20, 30, 40% success rate. And we start to see medical miracles occur. That's a big shift, right? So you get into these things like Psych K, healing code, again, lots of modalities that are all very similar. And you start shifting blocks and doing healings, people start to see results. Not all the time, right? It's not a magic wand that does whatever you want. But you go do healings on 10 people, I'd be surprised if you don't see 1 or 2 miracles occur, right? So we know we're on the right track. But I don't know about you and your listeners, 10, 20% isn't good enough for me, right? Because even if you're 20% at miracles, that's still 80% of your clients that aren't getting the result they want, right? And so this leads us into the third generation, which is very new. And I'm not the only one teaching it, but there's not many. The big difference would be with the third generation technology, we're moving out of metaphysics into spirituality. And it's a different thing, right? And I know, especially people new to this industry, you won't see the difference. And I get that. But there is a big difference between metaphysics and spirituality. Metaphysics is we kind of leave the idea of the self intact and learn to use the power of the mind and energy to do things we want, right? So we learn to clear blocks. We learn to do intuitive readings. We learn to do healings. We learn to clear space. Those are great metaphysical techniques, right? The trouble is they're never going to end your suffering. You're always going to be running on a treadmill, right? That you may make more money, but it just won't feel like enough. So you're still going to be struggling and suffering. And that's what happened to me. That 5 years after meeting Terry, I learned everything she had to teach me. I got off disability. I started a company. I started making money. I started helping people. I was able to get out and start dating again. So it was great in a lot of ways, but I was still trapped in my mind. I was still suffering and struggling, even though I was doing better, right? And again, it's a very long story short. I went through another dark night of the soul. Even after everything, it still wasn't over, right? There was a car accident that left me with a concussion and lower back pain and whiplash. I had gotten married and my first wife left me. I mean, I could go on, right? And that all ended with me getting defrauded and ending up bankrupt.
Oh.
And that was difficult because when I came out of school, I figured I'd be a millionaire by 30, right? I wasn't expecting to be bankrupt at 40. But it was literally the day after my bankruptcy, I met my late mentor, Carl. And he's the one that opened the door to the third generation technology. It's about the process of awakening, which sometimes we call non-duality or Advaita Vedanta. It's about learning that there is a life force out there, right? But by living in our minds in the modern world, we've disconnected from it. And so it's a process of awakening to the truth and a direct experience of embodiment, which is a little hard to talk about because this is why not many people do this, right? There's just a small number of people on the cutting edge doing this work right now. But here's how I would describe it, that when we're born, we're like a toothpaste tube that's full of toothpaste, right? And we all know if you've got a brand new tube of toothpaste, it's really easy to get it on your brush, right? Piece of cake.
Yeah.
Right? But what happens is when we're born, our bodies, our minds are full of life force, full of energy, full of consciousness, right? Like toothpaste.
Right.
But as we go through our lives and grow up, it gets squeezed out of us. So we start using up the toothpaste, right? And we all know how frustrating it is when your toothpaste is empty and you're squeezing on it just trying to get that little bit out, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
what most of us end up like as adults. This is why we're struggling. This is the last piece of the formula for miracles, is we don't realize it, but we've squeezed all the toothpaste out of our tube. And we're wondering, why am I having trouble making money? Why am I having trouble finding love? Why am I having trouble being healthy? Why am I not happier? And why, right? I've done all this stuff. Why is it? Well, that's your answer. Is in order to create this positive, life-affirming experiences, we need to have consciousness in our bodies and minds, right? But like the toothpaste tube, we've squeezed it all out. And in the third gen work, it's about awakening to the truth of life and God and the universe and learning to get the life force back into yourself. It's getting the toothpaste back in the tube. And that for me was the biggest missing piece. That it took me, again, it didn't happen overnight, but over a couple years, I was able to more than triple my income. I found love, started a family after I thought that ship had sailed. And again, it's not like my life is perfect, but it's so much better than it was, right? And I was a little bit of a head case. My mentor, Carl, would say most people that worked with him for 3 years would 10x their income. So I was kind of on the short end of that, right? I only got a 3x, right? But that made a huge difference in my life. And so what I want to offer to people is the formula for miracles is like a guided tour of the generations of consciousness. I won't spend a lot of time in the first gen because almost everyone knows that, right? Right. A little bit, but I will give you a thorough grounding and a deep understanding and mastery of the second gen tools because they're important. You need to know how to clear blocks. You need to know how to do healings. You need to know how to access your intuition. You need to know how to clear space. Hugely important, right? If you're not clearing space and radiation in these things, you're at a huge disadvantage in life. Huge disadvantage. And so that's important. And the second gen tools are pretty easy to learn. There's an easy learning curve, right? And that will start moving you forward. But the really heavy lifting is done with a direct embodiment. It's a little weirder. There is a steeper learning curve, but there's really nothing like it. When we get into the movement feedback holography, the quantum field entrainment, I mean, all sorts of cool things happen. I'll just share one fun story. I remember I was with my mentor, Carl, on a retreat. And He took me out at midnight to go on a walk. Like, okay, your master knocks on your door, says we're going for a walk at midnight. You just get dressed and say yes, right? That's how I was raised, right? It's like, Brent, let's go for a walk. I'm like, what? I'm like half asleep. Like, get dressed, we're going for a walk. I'm like, all right, yes, master, right? So I went and he took me out, and we were in New England, I think northern Massachusetts, and he took me for a walk on a path under a tree canopy. And it was at night with no moon, and it was so dark you literally couldn't see your hand in front of your face, right?
Yep.
And he said, Brent, follow my energy. And I had to tune into the quantum field, and it was the craziest thing. I could see like this little blur of light where he was. I could see his consciousness. And I followed him on this path. We went for over half a mile, and I was like, wow, I didn't know I could do this, right? And then a
Yeah.
funny thing happened. He said, Brent, stop, take 3 steps back, turn to your right, continue. Like, all right, yes, master, right? So I do it, right? Continue. And then we come out down by the beach, and we sat and talked for a little bit. And I'm like, hey, Carl, when you told me to stop and go back, what was happening there? He was like, oh, you were about to walk off a cliff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
So that's the kind of thing that happens, though. It was an amazing
Wow.
thing. In pitch darkness, I could tune
Yeah.
in and start to see the energy field, right? And
Amazing.
these are the kind of things that happen
Now,
when
in
you
that
really
moment,
get in deep.
right, in that moment, Brent, because you have that engineer mind, that computer mind, did you say to yourself, wow, this is like amazing? Or how did you feel in that moment when you could
Not at
actually
that
follow?
point, because I
Okay.
had had so many miraculous experiences up to there
Okay.
that I guess you get a little bit jaded after a while when you've seen thousands of miracles. You're just like, yeah, put it
Okay.
with the others, right?
Right.
Right. Oh,
Okay.
I suppose it's like a billionaire making another $1 million. It's like,
All
oh, that's
right.
cool, but just
Yeah.
put it in the room with the others. We'll find something to spend it on, right? It
Right.
didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise
Wow.
me. But
It's
that's the
amazing.
kind of thing we can do. We can all
Right.
develop this ability. It's just a matter of how connected are you to life force,
Yes.
right? How
Absolutely.
how much how
Absolutely.
much toothpaste is left in your tube?
Right.
And as we
Yeah.
start to refill it, that's when life really starts to take off. That's when
It's
things
so,
get really interesting.
right. It's such a shame that gets, as you say, squeezed out of us. But can you tell us then? You talked about the subconscious blocks. Is that
Sure.
what you would refer to as the biggest obstacles holding people
I
from
think for most
experiencing
people,
a
yeah,
better? Okay.
it's
Hmm.
the biggest obstacle. It's also one of the easier ones to work with.
Okay.
Is it the only obstacle? No. And I want to tell the truth here. I know a lot of people in this industry make a lot of big claims. And I want to push back on that. I just want to tell the truth that
Right.
the subconscious is a big obstacle. And many people find as they learn to get into their subconscious and start clearing the blocks that things start to improve and move forward in their life, for sure. What I can't promise is, gee, we'll do 30 minutes of block clearing and I'll be a millionaire tomorrow, right? Or, gee, we'll do 30 minutes of block clearing and I'll fall in love the next day. Those things happen. I just can't promise it. But for many people, the subconscious blocks are a big thing holding them back. And it's unfortunate. But if you're full of subconscious blocks, you can go to 1,000 positive thinking weekends, right?
Mhm.
Say a million mantras, right? And put 100 power words on your wall, and nothing will change. The subconscious is, again, it's necessary, but not always sufficient on its own.
Mhm.
But you must do it. And
Right.
some people, the blocks are the only thing in the way. And these are the people who experience miracles after a little bit of work, right? I've seen
Right.
people, dozens of people heal from cancer instantly. I had one from HIV went undetectable. Had a broken bone heal overnight once. That was pretty cool, right?
Mm.
Allergies, asthma, depression. I mean, autoimmune diseases. I could go on and on. I've seen
It's
all these things heal instantly.
right. It's amazing. I mean, well, it's groundbreaking, really. But when we learn the power that is within us and the life force, all of it together, we have no idea what we're capable of. I mean, that's what I always say. We're very
Yeah.
powerful individuals, and that
Yeah.
might
I
not be the
mean,
right word, but
no, I think you're correct. Though,
it's
if I wanted to be nitpicky, I go, well, we're not actually individuals. We're actually all
right,
one,
right.
right?
We're one.
We've created the illusion of separation and individuality to facilitate experience for which it's necessary, right?
Exactly.
But
Yes.
for in terms that'll be more relatable for the listeners, I would say there's three biggest obstacles we face.
Okay.
Number one is subconscious blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, right? You got to find a way to deal with that. Number two would be attachment to result. And
Mm.
this is where the
Yes.
spiritual study is so important. As long
Right.
as you think you're a separate being, you can only go so far,
Right.
right? You can only go so far. Through the process of awakening and discovering the truth of consciousness, life, and God, that's really the only thing that gets us past the attachment, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So attachment to result is huge. That holds us back. And the third would be the lack of direct embodiment, that
Mm.
we squeeze too much toothpaste out of our tube, that we're there
That's
struggling to make more money, to make our marriage work, to get our health on track, right? And it's like you're squeezing the heck out of your toothpaste tube just trying to get a little bit of toothpaste out, right? And we wonder, can you help me? Can we squeeze harder and squeeze harder? And that's what we're doing. It's like, no, stop. Stop squeezing harder. Learn to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
yeah.
Then it's almost effortless. And for most people, they approach it in that order. One, we got to show you how to clear your blocks. Two, we got to start your awakening process to get you more grounded, less attached, right? More of the neutral observer to life rather than the, oh God, this is happening to me, if that makes sense.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then we start your direct embodiment. We get that toothpaste back in the tube. Then you're going to like what happens. I'll just warn everyone, life probably won't take you exactly where you think you want to go, right? That's unusual. But if you give it a chance, it will take you somewhere better.
Oh, I love that.
So that's part of our journey, right?
That is amazing, Brent. Oh my gosh, I have to use that. That is such a
Sure.
great quote.
Yep. I
It
actually
may
learned
not
that.
take you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a funny thing. It was early internet. I've always been a huge music fan. I love music, right?
Mm.
Music is my
Hmm.
passion. I'm driving
Right.
to LA tomorrow night just to see my favorite band play, right?
Oh,
I will, I will, crawl over broken glass, as Terry used to say, to get to my favorite concerts, right? And it was one of the early bulletin boards that they were talking about some different progressive bands, and someone had mentioned a band I'd never heard of called Fates Warning. And I bought their album because someone wrote, Fates Warning is weird. It never goes where you expect it to, but it always takes you somewhere better.
mm.
And that was my experience. And it was such a great teacher for life, right?
Yes.
That was teaching me a lesson about life. Had nothing to do with music, right?
Right.
That we
Right.
think we know where it's going and it goes somewhere different. And at first we kick and scream and fight. Wah, I don't want to go there. I want to go here, right?
Right. Yeah.
What we're saying is chill, relax, trust the divine. If you're willing to give it a shot, I think you'll really like where you end up. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time it's better because I'll admit, I thought I was going to be a multimillionaire in my 20s by the end of the 90s. I figured
Hmm.
I'd, retire and hot tub with supermodels, drive a jet ski, maybe surf, skydive and just have fun. And that's what I wanted. But I look back and I go, if I had had that kind of success at that age, I would have turned into one of the world's biggest jerks.
Mm.
I think it would
Yeah.
have made me impatient and cruel and irritated with people all the time.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
I would have caused a lot of harm to myself and the
Ab-
people around me, right?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you would be far from enlightened. That's for
Right.
sure.
Far from it. I
Far-
would have been. I would have been digging myself a hole. I
exactly.
also
You'd
would
have
have.
no toothpaste in the tube at
That's right.
all.
I'd have nothing left.
I
And I
love that
also,
analogy.
yeah, when I was younger, I wanted to use money and success as a way to push the world away
Mm,
because it was too
that's
difficult, too
interesting.
painful.
Mm,
And again, life took me a different direction because ultimately it was much better. I
mhm.
was forced to go and re-engage with the world, right?
Right.
And I think it's made me a much better person. That I don't think you would have liked me had I had the big success I wanted at a young age. And who knows, I
Right.
could have ended up addicted to drugs, or who knows how miserable or horrible it could have been. So I'm very
Exactly.
grateful that I didn't get everything I wanted when I wanted it, as crazy as that
Hmm.
sounds, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
this is part of the spiritual path of understanding how life works. That we think we're the separate being, the mind, the ego, and we think life is about just figuring out what to do to make it be the way we want, right?
Right.
That's what I used to think. It led me right into a ditch. There's a lot more than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you have said a number of times that there is hard science that can
Sure.
explain the mystical phenomena, such as instant healing. So, have you covered most of it? Is it coming from the hard science? Is it coming from the physics realm, or is it
Yeah, mostly
some?
coming from physics. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That I think the keys, obviously, we don't have the time here to get deep into it, but I want to give
Hmm.
people a couple pointers, right? The key aspect of science that unlocks the power of the mind is found in quantum physics. That for a long time, we used to think that the world operated to what they called the billiard ball universe, right? Where it's just a bunch of objects in motion and it all works mechanically. What we found is that's not true, that there's this weird randomness, that looking at something actually changes what you see. And that is what you learn by the study of quantum physics. If we look at things like Schrodinger's cat, this double slit experiment, etc., the uncertainty principle, that's where you find the foundations from which we build a scientific understanding of instant healing, of the law of attraction, of spiritual experiences. And the way it works is pretty simple. The divine has set up the universe to operate according to divine law.
Mm.
And whether or not we humans know about it, the law is still there, right?
Right.
Humans were affected by gravity a long time before Newton cracked the code, right? And
Yep.
so the human experience has been largely exploring and understanding these laws.
Mm.
And we've come a long way with the physical laws. We have a great understanding of gravity, of electromagnetism, right? Of friction, the laws of
Hmm.
motion, thanks to Newton and Einstein and all these other giants. What we're doing now, my contribution is doing the same for the metaphysical laws.
Right.
That the law of attraction is one of them, the law of exchange, the law of truth, the law of opposites. There are these metaphysical laws that govern our reality. And just like we learn to build electronics and airplanes, we can learn to build metaphysical constructs out of the metaphysical laws. We can
Mm.
learn a system for energy healing, for mind power, even for getting the consciousness back into your body. It's just a matter of understanding the laws and working with them, right?
Right.
That don't
Right.
whine that gravity is too strong. Go build a better wing on your airplane, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or as
Yes.
some self improvement teachers will say, stop trying to make your problems smaller, make yourself bigger.
Mm.
And that's a
Yes.
lot of what I'm doing here is I can't promise your problem will go away, but I can help you to grow yourself and your power so the problem does not seem as significant, right?
Right.
And the
Absolutely.
only thing on our way is what's up here. The only
That's a
obstacle is your own. Yeah,
that's a big one.
yeah. My late mentor used to say, Brent, if you woke up with amnesia tomorrow, you'd be fine. And there's a lot of power there, right? Because
Wow.
if you woke up tomorrow and you didn't know who you were or what your life was supposed to be like, and someone
Yeah.
just showed you this is your name, this is where you live, this is your job, this is your wife, whatever, right? You'd be like, awesome, let's do it. And you would do amazing because we wouldn't get hung up by the baggage of the past, right?
Yeah.
You would just go and start doing things and building a better life, and it would be simple. But this brain thing is a big problem for us, right? A good example would be I had a client once who is elderly. I think he was 87, and he had a frozen hip. He couldn't move it at all. And his doctor wanted to do a manipulation. And I said, I think that's a good idea. And I saw the videotape. It was amazing. Under anesthesia, all of his limbs twisted and bended like he was 15 years old.
Hmm.
It was no problem at all. So, and we had the video we watched, the doctors took, right? And the
Right.
doctor showed it to him. He goes, there's nothing wrong with your hip other than in the mind. And I don't mean that as criticism, but just know that that it's your brain that's creating the problems, right?
Right. Right.
When you turn
Our
the brain
minds.
off, the same thing happened to me when I was when my elbow was paralyzed. I went in and had manipulation under anesthesia, and the doctors told me, they showed me a picture. My arm moved just fine when I was unconscious. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But when as soon as I woke up, I couldn't move it again. And that's just an example. That's how powerful your mind is.
Yeah. Very. But then, like you said, it can work for you. That's what we
right.
have to learn, is how
That's
to make it
beautiful.
work
Right.
for us.
That's right.
Right.
The mind is not the enemy.
No.
It's not. We're not trying to
Right.
get rid of it or kill it. No. We're just trying to work with it. Right?
With it. Yes.
That's right. It's
Absolutely.
like if you have a big, powerful dog, that dog can guard your home and make you safe, right? Or
Right.
the dog can attack you and hurt you. All depends on how you relate to the dog, right? So
Exactly.
the mind is both the greatest gift and the biggest obstacle we all have.
Yes.
It
Absolutely.
can do almost anything, but it will also ruin your life if you're not careful. So there you
Yes.
go.
Absolutely. So, that being the case, what advice would you give someone who is desperate for a breakthrough, but they've wasted a lot of time and money on things that
Yeah.
don't work? Like
So I'm going to give
that's
a
the
couple.
problem
Yep.
that a lot of people are
Yeah,
stuck in.
a lot of people are in that place.
Hmm.
Couple things I'm going to offer to everybody to help you get out of that.
Okay.
First is, don't make the next person accountable for the mistakes others made in the past, right?
Hmm.
That we all have to take accountability for our life, right? That if you spend 100 grand on things that don't work, don't expect the next person to do all the work for free. Why? That turns you into a victim, right?
Right.
And this is hard, but we all have to own that we have created our path. And that includes the good and the bad, right? So we
Hmm.
have to take accountability for our life and be willing to move forward like we have amnesia, like I said. If you weren't encumbered by the baggage of the past, you'd be doing great tomorrow, right?
Hmm.
Second piece is, you never know when the breakthrough is right around the corner. You'll never know. And so I look back at my two most important teachers. It would have been the easiest thing in the world to avoid them, right? I didn't have to go see Terry. Eventually, Lauren would have given up and left me alone, right?
Right.
All it took me was, at that time, I think it was $150 and an hour of my time. I didn't want to do it because I'm like, I don't think it'll work. It's too much money, blah, 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 right? I make all these excuses. So just know, you never know when your miracle is right around the corner. If someone
Okay.
had told me, hey, Brent, go see this healer lady, you'll have a miracle, of course I would have done it, right?
Right.
But that's the point. I didn't know.
Right.
I had no idea a whole new life was waiting for me. Especially because I wasn't looking for a new life. I just wanted my arm to move, right?
Yep.
All I wanted was my arm to move. What I got was not only that, but a new career and a whole new experience of life.
Yes. It
So,
opened the
and
door.
again, yep, an hour before I had no idea.
Hmm.
So it may be painful, it may be difficult, but this is what I tell my students and clients in that situation. It's not a question of whether or not you can get to where you want to be. That we can improve your life for sure. The only question is, are you going to give up before you get there? Right? I remember when I was single after my first marriage, I went on dates with over 150 different women before I ended up had found a girlfriend. Isn't that crazy, right? My wife, my
You're very
current wife,
ambitious, Brent.
yeah, I was really hard-headed about it, right? Like, damn it, I'm going to meet someone. It took me 3.5 years, dating coaches, soulmate seminars, new
Oh
wardrobe. I bought a motorcycle. I could go on, right? And over 150 women I dated. And then I met the woman who's now my wife. We fell in love, started a family, right? I
Uh-huh.
was her very first person she had ever dated online. So that's the point. I could have given up after 149,
Right.
but I didn't. I'm like, I'm just going to keep at this. And if it takes 10 years, it takes 10 years. Right.
Right.
And
So
that's
don't
the
give up.
attitude. Right. That's the attitude. Just say,
Mm-hmm.
this will take as long as it takes. I hope it takes a week, a month. Right.
Mm-hmm.
For my wife, it was easy. She went on Match. Her friend created a profile. 2 hours later, I emailed her. We had a date. We fell in love. We got married, have a family. Done. Right.
She probably
So,
thinks that's the greatest thing on earth.
yeah, it's like, oh, that was easy. Right. It's like it wasn't easy for me. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when I was saying it's not going to be the same path for everyone.
So is there a third
Some
one? Because you said there was
if I ever
three.
get a third one, yes, it would be we all live in prisons constructed out of what we think we know.
Yes.
So it's all these things you think you know, that's what's holding you back, right? Again,
Yeah.
that's why if we all woke up with amnesia tomorrow, we'd be fine. There wouldn't be this baggage of all these things we think we know, right? Maybe you think you're a loser or unlovable or a failure or too old or too young or too tall or whatever it is, right? That's your problem, right? Your problem isn't your problem. The problem is in your brain. Nothing personal.
Yes.
That's just how it works, right? Your
Right.
problem is
Right.
not that you don't have money. Because you take someone with screwed up consciousness and give them money, they'll just blow it and make their life worse, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the problem isn't what we think it is. The problem is inside. And if we can get this brain and body and energy aligned, then the sky's the limit. Again, it's
Yes.
not a magic wand. It's not going to make everything in your life be exactly the way you want in an hour, right? As
Right.
far as I know, there is no such thing. But this is a powerful set of tools that can absolutely move your life forward. The analogy I would give is almost anybody can learn to play guitar. The question is, are you willing to do the work, right? If you're willing to buy a
Absolutely.
guitar and take lessons and practice, you will play guitar, right?
Mm-hmm.
How good you are depends on a combination of your talent and your teacher and how hard you work, right?
Right.
So healing your body, making money, enjoying prosperity, self-esteem, finding purpose, feeling good every day. That's like playing guitar. Every single person listening can do this. The question is, are you willing to do the work? Are you
Oh
willing
yeah.
to buy a
Yeah.
guitar and take lessons and practice? If you are, you will learn, right? And
Absolutely. Yes. It's
my that's what I see with my students and clients. Everyone that's willing to do the work and go through the process sees results. Not always
yep.
what they want when they want, right? Sometimes. And
Right.
life won't always take you exactly where you want to go, but almost always it takes you somewhere better.
Right. Absolutely. Well, those are so important. All of those points. I mean, and often what it is we become unaware of what it is that not
Yeah,
even of what we need, but unaware of our surroundings, of our past lives, our present. I mean,
right.
we basically walk around unconscious a lot of the
Right.
time,
And
which
the
is
things
not,
we're doing are never going to work, right?
no,
If there's no
absolutely,
toothpaste left in your tube, squeezing it harder doesn't help.
no,
But that's what most
absolutely.
of us do, right? We're all this effort and energy on things that can't work. So
Yes.
let's let go of what we think we know. Try to start with a blank slate in the mind. And if we can do that, it's
That's a
much
hard
easier.
process. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of that, then,
Easier said than
what?
done, but yes.
Yes, exactly. What would be the most common false belief that causes suffering in our lives? I mean, I know there's
It's,
many
yeah.
of them, but
The biggest one is simple that
mm,
we all think we're a separate being.
okay.
You think
Yep.
you're a man, you think you're a woman, you think
Yeah.
you're Brent or Fred or Tina or Sam, right? You think you're a
Hmm.
parent, a teacher, a fireman. No. And it's hard to answer that, but the truth is, and this is what awakening is, it's discovering the self.
Hmm.
That as long as you think you're a separate being, suffering is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. And this is part of the
Wow.
spiritual study is to expand our idea of what we are.
Mm.
That you are not a soul or a name or a man or a body. None of that is true. That simply We are not any kind of separate being. And everything you could name that's a noun is a separate being, isn't it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
man, a woman, a teacher, a parent, a son, a daughter, an employee, even a spirit or a soul. Those are all separate beings, aren't they?
Yep.
So I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here and let everyone know, when your spiritual teachers tell you that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, they're wrong. There is that, but there is more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying Brent is just a body. There is a body to Brent, right? But there's more to Brent than just a body. There's a mind, a family, a business, a bank account, a set of memories, ideas, right? So I'm not saying that thing doesn't exist. What I'm saying is you're much more than just that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll encourage everyone to ask the question, what am I? And I think almost every answer you'll come up with is a separate being and it must be crossed out.
So let
When
me
you,
ask you then, when you say,
yeah,
what am I? John
mhm.
Kabat-Zinn says, who am I? Is
Sure.
it
Or
what
who?
am I or who am I? Because that's
I
different.
prefer what, because who
Okay.
assumes that you're some kind of persona,
Ah, a separate person. Uh-huh.
that you're some kind of person, right?
Right, right.
That a
Okay.
rock we don't consider a who, do we?
Right. No, it's
Or
what?
a tree, or a plank, or a phone. Like my phone, I do not consider a who; it's a what.
What? Yeah,
So
because
I
when
would
we
say
we
what.
talk,
That's right.
right, when we talked at the beginning, you said we're a computer, we're a program. We're
Yes,
programs.
the human being is a program.
Mm-hmm.
What you are is greater than that. A program is a piece of it, right?
Right,
It would be like saying that my car is a steering wheel. It's like, no,
right.
my car
No.
has a steering wheel, and a steering wheel is necessary to be a car, right?
Right.
But there's a lot more to it.
Okay.
So to say that Brent is a code or a program is like saying my car is a steering wheel.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
this is what I'll ask everyone to do. What are you? What is this awareness in your head? And keep putting answers until you find something that's not a separate being. It's a
That's a
challenge, right?
difficult task.
Yeah. And this is what we call awakening. And I'll just
Mm.
let everyone know I couldn't do it on my own. I struggled with this for over 10 years.
Wow.
Then it was taught to me in the right way and I got it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the formula. Is this
Right.
understanding. Once you understand the truth of you, your attachment will start to dissolve into presence.
Mm.
You get out of your own way and let life run the show, right?
Right.
That most of us are like, ever had a small child who kept trying to grab the steering wheel of your car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? They really want to drive. But you're like, no, no, bad, right? 3-year-olds don't
Right.
drive, dangerous. That's what we're like. Our ego, our mind is always trying to grab the wheel of life, right? And our
Mm.
soul is driving, going, no, bad, right? Let me drive. But the mind keeps grabbing the wheel. And it's
That's
nothing
great
personal,
analogy.
right? There's nothing wrong with being 3. I love 3-year-olds. They're so full of joy, right? I love little kids, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
hell no, I'm
Children
not
are
going to let them,
wonderful.
right? There's no way I'm letting them drive my car, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of it, is getting out of our own way, letting go of the wheel, letting a higher power drive while we focus on what we're supposed to be doing. And
Absolutely. I love
you
it.
do that,
So
life gets easier. Life gets easier for
does
sure.
this then my next question was, what is the secret to discovering your one's life purpose? And it sounds
That's
like
it.
some of this is,
Yes.
that's it.
Yes.
It's
Once you
being.
understand exactly what you are, your
Mm-hmm.
life's purpose will become so obvious and clear you will laugh.
Wow.
And I could put words on it, but the words wouldn't have any meaning, right?
Right.
But you will have a good laugh because it's so clear
Oh,
and so obvious. It would be like if you said, "Hey, Brent, what's the answer to this math equation?" And I gave you the answer in Swahili. What I was saying would be correct, but it wouldn't help you, right? Because you don't understand it. So that's why with awakening, I could put words on it, but it wouldn't make a difference, right? This is something you have to find for yourself. And I will have a process I will lead you through that takes that, right? Just like I cannot make you good at guitar by playing on my own. You have to do it at some point, right? Awakening is like that. I will show you everything that has to be done. You just got to walk the process. And everyone has that light bulb moment where they realize the truth and they start laughing because you're like, oh my God, it's so simple. It's so easy. It was right there. But we
Really?
don't have the
That's
context for it.
after
Yeah.
years of
Yes.
probably,
Yes.
teachings. Then it's
Right.
so easy. It's like, why
Right.
didn't I see this from the beginning? Maybe because
Yep.
it is so easy.
I think you're right. That it's so easy and so obvious. It's easy to look right past it.
Wow.
Right. It's
Well,
just like you hear of people that finally fall in love because they realize that the person had been in their life the whole time. Right.
Yeah,
And they just look right past them. And then they stop to go, oh, wow, you're right here. And they're like, yeah, I'm right here. I've been waiting. Right. And boom,
yeah,
there's love.
yeah.
So life is
I
like
often
that.
say that.
Once you see it, it'll be so obvious and your life will never be the same again. Especially, I've
It,
always wondered, I don't know how parents do it without awakening. The stress of
mm,
being a parent would kill me without my spiritual grounding.
mm,
So, I just have to say for all the parents that did it without this spiritual piece, oh my gosh, how did you do that? Seems impossible to me.
right,
But that's why
right.
we need to get you past attachment. Get the ego
Yes,
out of the way, put it in the back seat where it's supposed to be, right?
yes, yeah,
The ego is a terrible master, but a wonderful servant.
yes, absolutely. I agree 100%. It's a lot of these teachings are in yoga as well, having been
Of
a
course.
yoga
Of course they are.
instructor. And it's interesting because the ancients knew a lot of this, but we didn't regard them enough to understand or to delve into it. I mean, you've
Right.
taken it to the next level with
Yeah.
the science as much as a lot of individuals are doing today, but they knew it. We just refused to listen to it because it couldn't be proven
Sure.
or
Yeah.
something
And
of that
you probably know that yoga was originally developed to prepare the body for spiritual practice and meditation.
nature. Hmm.
That's where it
Yes.
came from, right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
do these things with your body, then the mental, spiritual, intuitive piece will get easier.
It makes the space. That's
Yep.
what I say. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that part has been largely forgotten and it's been turned into exercise, which there's nothing wrong with that. Exercise is great, right?
Right.
But you're missing this huge thing that used to be there. That's all.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly. Well,
I've done lots of exercise yoga, but
yeah,
you need to get back to the original purpose, right? There was something
exactly.
huge there they were trying to show us.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. So, where can people find your information? And tell us if there's any last words you'd like to share with our
Yeah,
audience. I heard you mention workshops.
sure.
Delve into that because I'd
I'm
really
hoping
love
most of
everybody.
them have already Googled me, but if you haven't, it's pretty simple. Just go to
Okay.
my website at awakeningdynamics.com.
Okay.
Right? So really easy. Just go to awakeningdynamics.com. And there's a couple things right there on the front page to get you started. One, there's a link to my YouTube channel. I got lots of great videos going deeper into this, the science of
Mm,
spirituality and how things really work. So a lot of great free content there. I also have a spiritual power quiz that is really
mm,
fun because I've learned we all have a secret spiritual power. And one of the things I want to do with everyone is help you identify what yours is and help it develop. So it'll
mm,
take you like 2 to 3 minutes. We'll send you a report on your spiritual power. And the most important thing is you'll see a huge arrow that says Save My Seat. I do live webinars multiple times a year where I go a lot deeper into the formula for miracles. Not
mm,
only will I explain all the aspects of it, I will guide everyone through interactive processes.
mm.
So this is called the Healathon webinar, and you make sure you want to save your seat because I want you to experience this for yourself. And
Absolutely.
there's only so much we can do here, right? But come
Hmm.
to the webinar, I will actually bring you into this quantum field, show you how to check yourself for blocks, show you how to clear them, and we'll have a Q&A session as well as a free healing for everybody that attends. So I
Mm.
think that's a brainer, and that's a great way to get into this. And if you're called to it, please do so. I would love to work with you.
Sounds
Though I'll admit,
wonderful.
I'm not for everyone. I'm a little intense. I'm obsessed with the truth. So just know that coming in, right? I'm going to give
Right.
you lots and lots of truth. The downside is you may not like the truth, but if you do, it's life changing. So give
Wow.
it a shot. Have your own experience. if this really works for you when it calls to you, I would love to work with you. I'd love to show you more.
Yes, absolutely. And this patent pending technologies that you have, is that your is that available now, or is that something
It
that you
is.
will be
It
bringing?
is.
Okay.
It's basically, here's what it comes down to. In
Okay.
order to shift the subconscious, we have to get you into a theta state.
Mm-hmm.
I figured
Yes.
out how to do that by putting an encoded audio that you listen to.
Oh,
So that's one of the shortcuts. So that makes it
mm-hmm.
easier to get started, because it does take me about 2-3 hours of training to show you how to get to a theta state on your own.
Mm-hmm.
With the audio encoding, it happens automatically. You can start clearing blocks right out of the gate 5 minutes later.
That's
So it's a great
fantastic.
tool, especially to get people started with this. It makes it easier to start with, right? It's kind of like the difference between learning to drive a stick shift versus an automatic.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes,
you can learn to drive a stick, but an automatic's easier, right? So most
exactly.
people learn to drive the automatic first and then learn to stick later. That's how I did it. So I
Yes,
just want to make it as easy as possible for people to get started. That's all there is to it.
that is fabulous. I am definitely going to be on your site, and you will be seeing me again because I am
Awesome. Looking forward to that.
so excited about what is happening, and the developments that are going that are taking place today. And like you said,
Yeah.
the timing is absolutely right, because if
Yep.
you had been 10, 15 years earlier, people would dismiss you as some kind of kook, probably.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
some
Well,
mad
some
scientist.
people still do, but that's okay.
Oh, that's okay.
I've
You
learned
know,
I don't really care what people think. Again,
yeah.
I'm obsessed with the truth, right?
Yes,
As
I
long as
love
I
it.
can find the truth and share it, whatever people want to think is okay with me.
I love it. And I want to encourage everyone too to pick up Brent's book. I have been reading it and I've highlighted all the pages. This is ridiculous, but it's fascinating because it really gets your mind thinking, you know, outside the, I say without the box. That's what I like to say is start to think without the box, because the boxes are what conform us. So because
Mhm,
we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question for you, Brent.
mhm.
If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
Hmm. I think I might call it What We Think We Know.
Oh, I
Why?
love that.
I ruined my life because I thought I knew so much.
Right.
And when I was willing to start to let go of that, to question these long held assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
that's when things started to open up. As a young man, I thought I had all the answers. I thought I had it all
Mm-hmm.
figured out. And it took me a long detour through hell to get past that. And, if I
Yes.
had just been willing to let go of what I thought I knew, it would have been easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What we think we know. I love that. That is so spot
Yeah.
on. Well,
I
I
actually
want to,
wrote up my life as a rock opera,
oh,
and
you did?
we were 1 week away from getting $1 million in funding, and it all fell apart. And I look back on it, it was actually a great gift. Had it funded, then the show would have opened in April of 2020,
Oh,
meaning it wouldn't
yeah.
have. But
Yes.
yes, I actually have written my life story up as a rock opera. So maybe at some point we'll make it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I want to, that sounds
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's
That
pretty
will be
cool.
great. I love rock
Yeah. I
operas. Oh
can't
my
say more
God.
than that without violating NDAs, but it's
Right.
it's a
Right.
great musical story with some incredible, it's all based on classic rock. So I
Oh
think
my
it would be
gosh.
amazing. Yeah.
It would be huge. Are you kidding?
I think
The
so.
young
Yeah.
kids today love the classic rock. They, you know,
Yeah.
like
Well, they
it always
should. Modern
amazes.
pop music kind of sucks, right?
Oh, it's
It's not their
awful.
fault. Yeah, it's
It's not
awful.
even music really.
Right.
It's all like electronic auto
Right.
tunes, and you
Right.
know, they don't even have a band behind them. It's all, you know,
Right.
plugged in.
Yeah.
It's
The
not what
I
it
miss
used to
the
be.
70s and 80s because those were the days you could turn on the radio and hear great music,
Yes. Yes,
right? Not so
absolutely.
much today. Yeah. It's out there,
I
you just have to dig a little harder. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to dig a little harder, but
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, I can't wait to see that. So you have to let
Yeah.
me know.
Short
It's going
answer
to happen.
short answer, go to Europe.
Go to
Rock
Europe.
didn't
Oh,
die, it just moved to Europe. So,
ah, okay.
yeah. Europe
Sounds
has a
good.
really strong
Well,
rock scene. Yep.
Brent, I want to thank you so much again for joining us. This has been so incredibly exciting, I think, and enlightening for people to start to experience and experiment with what their life can be. And I want everyone can find Brent's information on the Epic Vision Zone bio pages as well. And once again, be sure to check out his book. And I want to thank you for joining me here on the Epic Vision Zone. To stay in touch, follow me on Instagram at janeapplegath.com and go to my website, janeapplegath.com, to find a free download for how to reach your creativity. Once again, thank you so much for being here. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.